10 minutes prior in front of the Hunters Association building. When it clearly became impossible to take his rank evaluation test ahead of schedule, Ri Min-seong sensed the looming crisis and in the end, decided to drop a bombshell. Excuse me, I, Ri Min-seong, will retire from the entertainment industry regardless of the test result, and I shall pledge my service as a hunter for the betterment of the public. This was his last hurrah at reviving the atmosphere of the press conference that had cooled off from the sudden entrance of Go Gun-hui. Its effect was immediately noticeable. What? Ri Min-seong is going to retire, regardless of what his rank is. Right away, the atmosphere became frenzied. Countless cameras were now pointing at Ri Min-seong, and questions from excited reporters poured down on him non-stop. Mr. Ri Min-seong, please look this way. Are you telling us that you'll abandon the title of Asia's top movie star and choose the life of a low-ranked hunter if need be? Are you willing to give up on everything you built up as a successful actor? Yes, very good. Ri Min-seong was pleased as punch at all the attention being focused on him again. Even if the result is bad and I end up with a low rank, I wish to repay all the love everyone has shown me by fighting the monster threats. Of course, he was lying through his teeth. Just 2 years. He was thinking of helping out with the Reapers Guild's public image as its most famous rank, a hunter for only 2 years, while enjoying the sky-high annual pay package. This was the best method to silence those voices raising issues with him avoiding the draft with his father's help, as well as a few distracting noises rising up here and there recently, all in one fell swoop, climbing down from the summit to protect the ordinary citizens while risking his own life. This was the greatest opportunity for him yet, to achieve that often talked about lifetime guarantee against criticism status. And, with the Master of Reapers Guild, Chairman Mt. Jayu, who shares my wish, I. And so, as the gathered reporters were listening to Ri Min-seong's future aspirations, let us in. A rank S has emerged, right? Aren't you supposed to announce this ahead of time? Just get out of the way, will you? Reporters violently pounced forward, but they couldn't overcome the wall created by the agents of the monitoring division, where every single member was a hunter. What the hell is this? Having been forgotten by everyone in an instant, Ri Min-seong and his flustered face ran over to his burly manager. A rank S. Ri Min-seong became completely dazed. A rank S showed up today, of all days. He wanted to receive the attention and adulations of the world by becoming a rank A hunter. But, to think that a rank S hunter would pop up out of nowhere and ruin everything. It was at that point that Ri Min-seong spotted a reporter still talking to someone on the phone while belatedly climbing up the steps. He was none other than the exact same reporter who sought out Ri Min-seong's opinion regarding tomorrow's headline earlier. Excuse me, Reporter M. Even though Ri Min-seong's voice sounded urgent, Reporter M simply walked past while responding in haste. Ah, Mr. Ri Min-seong. I'll get in touch a little bit later, okay? Excuse me, Reporter M. Wait. Ri Min-seong got to eavesdrop on the contents of the call as the Reporter M's back gradually distanced itself away from him. That's right. I'm telling you to go with the headline of Tears of Rank E, now Joys of Rank S for tomorrow. Ri Min-seong scanned his vicinity with energyless eyes. There was no one around him now. He fell down on his knees. What is this? While he remained on the ground muttering to himself in dejection, the front entrance to the association was abruptly pushed open wide, and South Korea's 10th rank S hunter revealed himself. Jin Woo's eyes opened up super wide. What the heck is this? The camera lenses captured in full Jin Woo standing in front of the entrance, and behind him, Baek Yun-ho with a rueful expression and Choi Jong-in and his bitter smile. It was now lunchtime. The hunters of the mining team had ended the morning's operation and were sitting around to enjoy their lunch. Huh? One of the hunters playing with his phone cried out in surprise and hurriedly raised his upper body up. Hey, isn't this Mr. Seong? Lee Seong-gu's ears perked up. Hey, it is him. Mr. Seong's on the news. Indeed, Lee Seong-gu hadn't heard wrong. I knew it. With his face considerably flushed red after ingesting 3 cups of alcohol, Lee Seong-gu ran to where his colleagues were as if he had been waiting for this. Even while he was doing that, his mouth continued to operate without rest. I knew it from the moment that Beastard glared at me. Let me see for myself what horrible things that insolent Beastard committed now. Perhaps Lee Seong-gu's voice was too loud. Mr. Seong did what? Did Mr. Seong commit a crime or something? Including Foreman B. All of the mining team's hunters in the near vicinity gathered in one spot. Jin Woo's face filled up the palm-sized screen of the mobile phone, and just below that, large subtitles flashed by. Yuck. Having discovered Jin Woo, Lee Seong-gu's eyes began trembling. In front of the private office of Yujin Construction's chairman, standing in front of the door, Yu Jin-ho let out a short sigh. He opened the door, and as it smoothly glided inward, he also raised his head to spot his father busy going through several documents. Yu Jinho bowed down hard and spoke. "My apologies, father. I couldn't change Hyung-nim's mind." Yu Myung-hwan's expression hardened. "Okay, what did Hunter Seong Jin-woo say while rejecting your offer?" "Well," Hyung-nim said. Yu Jinho hesitated slightly, but he slightly raised his head and spoke. "He wants to make his own guild, so if I was interested in the vice master spot, I should come over instead." Yu Jinho thought that father would get angry or ignore that suggestion altogether, but instead, his expression was solidly frozen up. And then, grin. Yu Myung-hwan chuckled without making a sound. Someone widely known for his poker face, Chairman Yu Myung-hwan had actually revealed a change of expression in front of his own son. "What is my dad doing?" Yu Jinho couldn't dare to ask what was happening, so all he could do was to avert his gaze this way and that. Yu Myung-hwan spoke, that smile now erased from his lips. "Do you know why I'm trying to establish the Yujin Guild? Isn't it because there's money to be made in the hunter business?" "No, it's not." Yu Myung-hwan's tone of voice was resolute, unwavering. "We have more than enough money right now. You think I'll try something that could put us at odds with other large guilds just for the sake of chasing after a couple more bucks?" Was he trying to imply that money wasn't the reason? Yu Jinho's eyes widened. "But if not that, then..." Yu Myung-hwan carefully put the pen down. "It's in order to protect ourselves." Yu Myung-hwan's serious, dignified eyes caused Yu Jinho to swallow his dry saliva in nervousness. Hunters are growing in power every day, and it's not uncommon to see a single person possessing enough power to rival a country's military might. For instance, the world's most powerful hunters, seen as already on the level of exercising power equal to that of a country's government. Yu Myung-hwan was talking about those people. "I hear that some hunters already rule smaller nations like kings. How long do you think that the rule of law and governmental authority will keep us safe under the current situation?" Yu Myung-hwan's explanation continued on. "I wish to establish a guild and gather trustworthy hunters to our side. Not because I needed more money or that I am searching for talented individuals, but it's all to find those hunters who we can trust as fellow human beings, as well as for us to rely on their strength." And then, a nearly imperceptible smile formed on Yu Myung-hwan's face again. "Looks like you already found someone like that, haven't you?" "Yes, father." "You pass." "What did he pass just now?" Yu Jinho belatedly raised his bowed head. "I shall entrust the Yujin Guild to you." "Pardon me." "Do your best to develop the Yujin Guild. Make those trustworthy and reliable hunters your people. In the future, they will no doubt become even more valuable assets than any form of wealth." Yu Myung-hwan spoke with abundant certainty in his voice. And, just as his certainty was great, so was Yu Jinho's delight. Would this be the first time since his birth that Yu Jinho was acknowledged by his father? "Thank you very much, father." With an ample smile blooming on his face, Yu Jinho bent his back forward 90 degrees. Yu Myung-hwan looked on at that sight with a content expression. Unfortunately, what Yu Jinho said next went completely against Yu Myung-hwan's expectations. "However, father, I don't think I can accept your offer." Yu Myung-hwan's brows quivered slightly. "What is your reason?" Yu Jinho raised his head at that prompt, and while still carrying a happy-looking face, he spoke without holding anything back. "I've decided to work for Hyung-nim's guild." Finding himself surrounded by a wall of reporters, Jin-woo became quite flustered. Why aren't these people taking pictures of Ri Min-seong like they were supposed to, instead of blocking my way? Wondering if Ri Min-seong was standing behind him, he took a quick glance, but he could only see Baek Yun-ho and Choi Jong in there. The ink on his Rank S hunter license wasn't even dry yet, but the list of the highest-ranking hunters in South Korea had been updated already. "Mr. Seong Jin-woo, are you really the rank E hunter once affiliated with the association? You are now a very rare reawakened. How are you feeling right now?" Reporters writhed and struggled desperately in order to capture a bit more of Jin-woo's face or his voice with their cameras. However, Jin-woo found their explosive attention towards him simply annoying. "I gotta get out of this place first." "Over here, Mr. Seong Jin-woo, please look over this way." "Mr. Seong Jin-woo, the whole country is watching, so how about a smile for the viewers?" While the camera lenses and mics were gradually inching closer, Jin-woo spent the next 2 seconds earnestly pondering whether he should summon shadow soldiers like Tank or Fangs or not. The first one to engage the young man in conversation was Baek Yun-ho. "Hunter Nim." Jin-woo looked behind him. "Yes. Are you feeling lost with all these reporters around? We can safely escort you back to your house, so how about going with us?" I'll be alright. He then pulled the hood attached to his top and hid his face. I actually do have a place I need to stop by first. Excuse me. Jin Woo turned to face the reporters and then jumped up tens of meters in the air before landing on the other side of the crowd. That's why. Even before the flustered reporters could respond, Jin Woo blended into the crowd and disappeared from the view. Choi Jong-in was left speechless. Now that was a movement he couldn't even react to in time. Even though he was a rank S, it was quite obvious that the reporters, who were all regular people, wouldn't be able to follow that with their naked eyes. Choi Jong-in let out a wry chuckle. As soon as registering as a rank S, he's already playing the part of Superman. How was he supposed to be a mage type with that sort of physical ability? As a fellow mage type, it sure riled him up a bit. But, in that case, how would a rank S melee type hunter think of that? Just now, Choi Jong-in turned towards Baek Yun-ho in order to ask a question. But he flinched and reflexively took a step back. Chairman Baek, your eyes. He was so surprised that he even forgot to add the honorific title. And my apologies. Baek Yun-ho hurriedly covered his eyes with his hand and turned around. Just now, when Jin Woo gathered strength on his legs to prepare for that jump, he very briefly released his magic energy he'd been concealing until then. No matter how skillful a hunter was, it was nearly impossible to detect anything in such a short period of time. However, that incredible magic energy still caused Baek Yun-ho to instinctively activate one of his abilities, the Eyes of the Beast, and those eyes successfully detected Jin Woo's hidden power. He's strong. Baek Yun-ho already knew how strong the youth was. However, no, that's not important. Back when they had gotten into a bit of confrontation in front of the Red Gate, Baek Yun-ho also activated the Eyes of the Beast inadvertently. Jin Woo's strength was clearly imprinted in Baek Yun-ho's mind back then. Back then, the youth was very strong. Even if it was Baek Yun-ho himself, he would not have been able to win without sacrificing an arm. However, that was all. If he was willing to sacrifice that much, then he'd be able to win at any time. But now, what was the meaning of this difference in strength? He detected magic energy incomparably greater than before. That youth was so much stronger now. His reawakening process should have been over a long time ago. So, how could this be? In that instant, an implausible theory popped up in Baek Yun-ho's head. Could he be able to grow stronger? Possibly, not through reawakening process, but through growing stronger that he. Just as his thoughts arrived at this point. Excuse me, Chairman Baek. Are you alright? Your complexion is. Choi Jong-in worriedly asked him. Baek Yun-ho rubbed his face and shook his head hard. I was suddenly feeling a bit dizzy just now. I'm okay. Jin Woo soon arrived at the hunter auction. Even the best magic amplification artifact created with top materials by the world's greatest artifact maker pouring out his soul would not exceed 50% in effect. And then, gathering of the right materials itself would not be easy, not to mention that the manpower necessary and time required to make one should be ridiculous as well. One might consider himself lucky if he got to see one of those artifacts popping up in the market once every few years. The appraiser was actually a rank B mage type awakened, and thus he could immediately sense what kind of an item he was holding in his hand. Cold sweat broke out all over him. Oh my god. Goosebumps formed on his skin because of the sheer power emanating from this magic bead, and he hurriedly raised his head to find Jin Woo wordlessly staring back at him. This was his first time feeling like this. He lost count how many priceless artifacts he had handled over the years, but this was the first and the only time he felt the strong desire to beat up the person bringing this item for appraisal and steal it. Unfortunately, his opponent was a rank S. This, how can I even think about putting a price tag on this? His gaze shifted over to Jin Woo. Gulp, he swallowed down his dry saliva. Just where did this man acquire an artifact like this? This wasn't a problem the appraiser should worry about. He knew that, but still, he couldn't hold back and asked anyway. Where did you find this? There was no reason not to answer if they asked him. It wasn't as if he acquired this bead through less than honest means, and also, even if others know, none of them would be able to find another one for themselves anyway. Jin Woo's lips parted. 3 other people in the room held their breaths and focused on Jin Woo's answer, wondering just what might come out of his mouth. Jin Woo simply grinned and replied, I picked it up in a dungeon. Baek Yun-ho returned to his private office. I wish to be left alone for a while, so don't let anyone in. Maybe he found ordering his secretary wasn't enough. He even locked the door, too. Can it really happen? Baek Yun-ho couldn't stop thinking about Jin Woo, a hunter that could grow stronger. But, if not that, then how could anyone explain that man's strength that had increased to an unrecognizable degree in only a few days? I was being foolish. He finally understood why Hunter Seong Jin Woo was so disinterested in signing up with a guild. thinking about it from his perspective. If he was given an ability where he could theoretically grow stronger infinitely, would he want to enter someone else's guild? Baek-Yun-ho shook his head. Nope, I'd rather make a guild of my own. Who cared about the number 1 or 2 guilds in the country? After all, his own would soon become the best anyway. Both Choi Jong-in and I have been wasting time chasing after a pipe dream. Thinking about Chairman Choi, who should be sweating profusely right about now while trying to woo Hunter Seong Jin-woo. A wry chuckle automatically broke out of his mouth. However, if my theory is correct, then this matter isn't something to laugh about. In the not-too-distant future, that man would surely become an existence that would get to control the community of hunters in South Korea. No, hunters of the entire world might focus all their attention on him at this rate. He needed to completely rethink the plan regarding Hunter Seong Jin-woo now. But before all that, I need to meet him face to face and confirm it first. Baek-Yun-ho nodded his head. No matter how hard he thought about it, meeting Hunter Seong Jin-woo was the number 1 priority. Unfortunately, how am I supposed to ask him for a meeting? Baek-Yun-ho held his head tightly. When he realized that he just made his mind up to meet with a man who didn't even reply once to the countless requests for a sit-down until now, his head already began throbbing from a migraine. The department head took a step forward. It has been confirmed to be a real deal. Will you commence with the auction with us? We will ensure that you get the maximum amount for this article. So, what should Jin-woo do now? Before he could decide on what to do with the bead of avarice, he asked for something else. First, by any chance, can I purchase a flame-resistant defensive artifact here? The department head and Kim Jeong-kai looked at each other, and then they looked back at Jin-woo with somewhat awkward expressions. Jin-woo was confused by that. Did I ask for something I shouldn't have? No, not at all. Or is it really difficult to find a flame resistance armor, then? Actually, the department head smiled and spoke. It's the exact opposite. It's really easy to acquire one. But I couldn't find one online, though. Weapons and defensive equipment with innate attributes cost a lot of money, so they don't normally appear online all that often. Even still, if you are looking for it, you should be able to find one very quickly. Well, fire-type magic is the most common attack magic spells there are, after all. But, of course, most of the mage-type hunters Jin-woo met so far either wielded flames or rays of light. He heard that even the rank S hunter Choi Jong-in specialized in flame attribute magic, too. Not only that, the shadow magic soldiers he controlled also used flames, and even fangs could breathe fire. In other words, fire-type attacks were a pretty common sight. What a relief to hear that it's easy to find one. He did kind of feel a bit pressured after hearing that it would cost a lot, but his mother's treatment depended on him getting one. As long as he could find one quickly enough, he was willing to pay regardless of what the asking price was. If the push came to shove, he could sell the bead of avarice, too. 2 men headed off to the display hall exclusively reserved for the VIP clients that exhibited only those ultra-expensive artifacts about to be auctioned off or still waiting for their willing buyers. Weapons, armors, rune stones, etc. were displayed inside clear glass cases. Jin-woo stopped in front of a glass display case that contained a longsword. Kim Jeong-kai approached him. Do you see something you're interested in? No, it's not that, but... Jin-woo lightly knocked on the glass case. Can you really protect these artifacts with such a thin glass? I don't see any particular security system in here, either. Kim Jeong-kai formed a proud expression. They may look that way, but these glasses are reinforced with powerful magical energy by the very best craftsmen. Nothing would happen even if a melee-type rank A hunter hits them with everything he has. Even when a rank A hits it. Seeing that Jin-woo seemed rather unconvinced, Kim Jeong-kai smirked and carried on. If you don't believe me, how about hitting the glass once? If you manage to break it, then I might give you the artifact found inside. Hunter Nim. Come, was this reinforced glass really that strong? I can sense some magic energy in it, but... Now feeling genuinely curious, Jin-woo began gathering strength in his right arm to test it out. In an instant, his shoulder and forearm expanded, and the surrounding air sank under the heavy pressure. Hold on. Kim Jeong-kai hurriedly blocked Jin-woo's way. I was only just joking. I wasn't really asking you to hit it, you know. Oh, I see. If the case really breaks, then the elites of the Hunters Guild will rush over here. Our auction house and the Hunters have signed a security contract, you see. By the way, this guy, wasn't he supposed to be a mage-type hunter? He was supposed to be a mage-type hunter, yet why was his aura so outrageous? Kim Jeong-kai wasn't joking when he told Jin-woo to hit the glass. He was thinking that, even though this youth was a rank S, he was a mage type, so his physical strength couldn't actually be that high. But then, when Jin Woo began concentrating, all the hair on Kim Jong-kai's body stood up, and instinctively, he knew that he had to stop the youth. What a relief it was that Jin Woo backed off without raising a fuss. Well, Hunter Nim's hand might get hurt if something went wrong, so this is fine. The staff signaled with his eyes, and Kim Jong-kai nodded his head. "Ah, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm in charge of the weapons section. Please come with me." The staff member guided Jin Woo and they exited from the VIP display hall. After seeing those two off, Kim Jong-kai spat out another sigh. This Seong Jin Woo Hunter Nim seems to possess a talent for surprising people, doesn't he? He checked the glass case to see if there was a fingerprint or something since Jin Woo had been standing pretty close to it. But then, what the heck? He spotted a crack in the corner of the glass case that was so small, it was easy to miss with naked eyes. Since when did this happen? He pulled out a handkerchief and rubbed it, but sure enough, it didn't get wiped away. It wasn't some dirt, but an actual crack. Well, I'll be. Kim Jong-kai frowned deeply. How disappointed Hunter Seong Jin Woo would have been, someone who could be one of their most important clients, if he saw that. It was a small relief that the crack was near the corner of the case in a hard-to-spot location. Jin Woo picked up the dagger that the staff member in charge gave to him. If you were being honest, it was rather lousy in quality. It's far worse than the Night Killer, which is ranked at Rarity B. The attack power was not even half of the Night Killer, too. With a disappointed expression on his face, Jin Woo returned the dagger. "How much is this guy?" "It's 30 million won." Jin Woo's eyes widened. How much did he say for this measly little dagger? How much? 30 million won, Hunter Nim. Hold on. Jin Woo turned around, and while pretending to rummage around, he summoned the Night Killer and showed it to the staff member. Okay, how much would this guy go for, then? It was now the turn of staff to widen his eyes. "Is this your current weapon?" "Wowzers. I can definitely sense the touch of a great artisan from this dagger." "No, well, I bought it off the store, though." The staff member hesitated slightly, before raising his voice with a grin. "It won't be accurate since I'm not a dedicated appraiser, but at the bare minimum, I think it should cost well over 100 million won." Jin Woo's expression hardened. "But, I paid 3 million gold for it in the store. Or was it more like 2.8 million? Seeing Jin Woo's expression, the staff member embarrassedly scratched the back of his head. "Was I wrong? Since I'm a specialist when it comes to weapons, I thought I could give it a shot, even though it's not really my place." "No, it's nothing like that." Indeed, Jin Woo was simply shocked by the sky-high price tag, that was all. But, well, the first real weapon he held, Kim Song-sik's steel sword and its attack damage of 10, was supposedly over 3 million won in price, while Yu Jin-ho's equipment, which the kid didn't really get to use all that much, also commanded price tags of over 100 million each. So, he shouldn't have been surprised by the fact that items with high stats sold in the system's store could potentially fetch high asking price in real life, too. Wait a minute. Currently, he had so much gold stored in his inventory that it was practically bursting at the seams. However, if he could buy items from the store with that accumulated gold, and then sell them off at a really high price, Jin Woo's head spun pretty quickly then. Doesn't this mean I won't have to sell the bead of avarice? Just as his thoughts arrived at this point, or his emotions to blame, he thought he could hear the loud cheers of the magic soldiers hidden inside his shadow. Holy cow, Appa, those reporters are still outside the building. Jin-ah spoke while looking out of the window. It was already late in the evening. Reporters who hadn't given up yet were still gathered around in front of the apartment's entrance like a storm cloud. Look, up there. After discovering the silhouette of a person by the window, they hurriedly operated their cameras, thinking that it was Jin Woo. Seeing all those camera flashes suddenly exploding from here and there, Jin-ah jumped up in fright and quickly shuttered the curtains. She turned around and sighed softly like a timid little animal. Should I go downstairs and say something? It was fine for those folks to disrupt his rest. However, he was more worried about them disrupting his sister's studies. Jin-ah was a high school senior, about to take the most important test of her life. Wasn't this the time when some overly sensitive kids would throw a tantrum just because of the faint footsteps outside their doors disrupting their studies? Well, Jin-ah isn't the type to raise a fuss over stuff like this, but still, could she even be able to concentrate with all these distracting noises coming from the outside? Just as Jin Woo was getting prepared to step forward. No, don't do it. Jin-ah quickly waved her hands about. Appa, you're already being slagged off in the internet, you know. So, can you imagine what they'll say if you chase away the reporters? Slagged off? Since when did I do something worthy of that treatment? As Jin Woo tilted his head this way and that, Jin-ah accessed one of the news articles online with her phone and pushed it forward. So, he took it from her. On the screen, he could see the photo of him standing in front of the association's entrance, relaxedly answering his phone while being surrounded by a sea of reporters. Maybe because a professional snapped that shot. Even a plain guy like him came out looking pretty good, so he was happy about that. However, when he took a look a bit lower down, his attitude sucks. He already doesn't care about the reporters. He's way too cool for himself. Countless comments with similar nature were posted below the article, and the highest upvoted comment was "Mom, I've become a rank S." Because the photo and the comment went so well along with each other, Jin-woo ended up breaking out in a grin. Jin-ah in turn became flabbergasted from his reaction. How can you smile from that? But it is funny. It was then Jin-woo's eyes narrowed to a slit. His gaze shifted toward the front door. Someone's coming this way. Jin-ah also noticed her brother's tense aura. She asked, sounding a little anxious, "Appa, stay in your room for a bit, okay? What's the matter?" A presence climbing out of the elevator was walking straight to here now. It's a hunter. The suspicious presence emitted a thin and weak magic energy. Jin-woo couldn't sense any hostile intentions from this presence, but still, he didn't feel like humoring an uninvited guest. The man spoke. Hyung Nim. He was even sniffling, too. Yoo Jin-ho and his reddened nose were standing in front of the door, sniffling like a little kid. Hyung Nim. I got kicked out of the house. Dad kicked me out. Now that Jin-woo took another look, there was a backpack as big as Yoo Jin-ho slung on his back. He was even carrying quite a lot of luggage in both of his hands, too. Wait, didn't you live alone already? Well, that, sniff, the villa I was living in was under father's name, and he took it away. He even blocked all my bank accounts. A father blocking his son's bank accounts. All of them. So, like, I was wondering, Hyung Nim, can I impose on you for the time being? Clank. Jin-woo quietly closed the door, and even proceeded to lock it. Click. Worried Jin-ah had been observing the situation from her room, and once Jin-woo turned away from the door, she quickly jogged next to him and asked, "Appa, who is that? Do you know him?" Jin-woo shook his head. Nope, never met him before. You really don't know him. But why did he come to our place, then? Don't worry about it. I'm sure he got the wrong address. Really? But it sure didn't look like that, though. As Jin-woo gently but firmly pushed his still suspicious little sister back into her room, Yoo Jin-ho's sorrowful voice continued to ring out behind him. Dear, don't you think you were being too harsh on Jin-ho earlier today? Yoo Myung-hwan roughly yanked at his tie. What an insolent little child. He was about to be gifted with the Yujin Guild, which would no doubt become the Yujin Construction's core business in the future, yet he dared to answer like that. What? Follow Hyung Nim, was it? That fool deserved it. Yoo Myung-han snorted derisively. If the boy wished to stand on his 2 feet, then he should do so on his own power, too. The father thought that he'd teach his son about every choice being accompanied by responsibilities and consequences. Was it because he was far too agitated? For some reason, it felt like his DMN tie just didn't want to come undone. My dear, are you sure you're really angry? Yoo Myung-han tilted his head slightly and took a look at his own reflection in the mirror. What the? He was surprised by what he saw. Why did he look so pleased in the reflection? Even though his mouth was busy spewing out complaints only until a second ago. Yoo Myung-han stared at his wife's face. But this is quite strange. What is strange, dear? I can see 2 of your faces. Pardon? Just as the madam's eyes widened, Yoo Myung-han lost his balance and staggered unsteadily. Dear. The frightened madam hurriedly tried to support Yoo Myung-han. The madam's eyes opened wider. Why is there so much cold sweat? Yoo Myung-han tried to keep his eyes wide open to forcefully beat back the sudden feeling of sleepiness, but in the end, lost his consciousness. Can you hear me, Chairman? Yoo Myung-han took a quick look around him and immediately figured out where he was. How long have I been here? You've been sleeping for the last 2 days. 2 days. The person most likely to be picked as the role model for hard working would be Yoo Myung-han. He had never slept for more than 5 hours in a day in his entire life, no matter how tired he was. I guess I was quite tired, then. He was indeed swarmed with various matters that kept him insanely busy recently. The sudden bout of vertigo and that unshakable sleepiness were probably the side effects. However, the doctor couldn't hide the seriousness from his expression. By any chance, have you discovered something wrong with my body? Mr. Chairman, by any chance, do you have anyone near you who is a hunter or someone who's not a hunter yet but has been evaluated as an awakened? The doctor suddenly asked about something rather strange. Yoo Myung-han asked if there was something wrong with his body, yet why was he talking about hunters now? Yoo Myung-han asked back, feeling puzzled now. What are you talking about? Why hunters, all of a sudden? Have you heard of eternal sleep? Hearing the term eternal sleep, Yoo Myung-han finally lost his cool, and his eyes trembled. The eternal sleep disorder, an endless slumber that no one could wake up from. Not only was it impossible to wake up from its death-like slumber, but the life force of the sufferer would also decline quite sharply, so it was a necessity to use life support machines that utilized magic energy. Appearing for the first time after the advent of the gates, it was a terrifying illness that managed to kill scores of people who lacked the wherewithal to borrow one of those life support machines. It's an illness where you'd be assaulted often by drowsiness, and eventually, you'd be unable to wake up at all. The doctor carried a complicated expression. There had not been a single case of the sufferer of the eternal sleep waking up so far. How does that relate to hunters? The eternal sleep is widely believed to be deeply related to magic energy. There were those people who, by nature, couldn't endure magic energy all that well. One of the abnormalities displayed by these people after being exposed to surrounding magic energy for a long time was this eternal sleep disorder. What you need to be careful with are the magic crystals, mana stones, as well as people possessing magic energy. People possessing magic energy. Yu Myung-han immediately recalled the soul awakened in his family, Yu Jin-ho. Meanwhile, the doctor cautiously carried on. I've heard that your second son is a hunter, sir. When Yu Jin-ho was mentioned, Yu Myung-han's face visibly hardened. So, the gist of it is, you want me to never meet my own son. Is that it? If it's at all possible, that is indeed my recom. With each passing day, people found more and more practical applications for magic energy, and the number of people innately possessing magic energy was steadily increasing as well. So, if you couldn't withstand magic energy when living in a world like this, didn't that already mean you had been eliminated from the natural selection? Yu Myung-han harumphed unhappily. Yu Myung-han, have failed to make the cuts. Such a thing could never happen. I will not submit. Before leaving, Jin-woo carefully opened the door to his sister's room. As it was still in the early hours, Jin-ah remained blissfully stuck in a slumber so deep that she'd not be any wiser if someone kidnapped her right now. Suddenly, he felt worried. There might be a jackass or two who'll try to get closer to her while I'm away. Of course, there should be no one stupid enough to harm the little sister of a rank S hunter, but well, it was hard to tell what was in a human's heart sometimes. At least, he needed some sort of a contingency plan. Come out, Jin-woo called out those monster soldiers that had been guarding Fangs when they were still alive. 3 of the biggest, burliest high orcs appeared simultaneously, and ended up making the already tiny room of his sister feel even more claustrophobic. However, why are there only 3? There definitely had been 4 guards, though. Jin-woo combed through his memories, only to spit out a soundless groan. Only now did he remember that he planted one of the guards in the ceiling of the boss room. And naturally, he forgot to extract that guy's shadow. I guess I should pay closer attention next time. Jin-woo smirked softly before shifting his gaze over to the 3 monster soldiers, who used to be high orc guards while still alive. All of them were elite grade. Jin-woo pointed with his chin towards the sleeping Jin-ah. And when that happened, the guards returned to shadow forms and moved along the floor, and they assimilated into her shadow. Very good. Hide in there quietly, and when Jin-ah finds herself in danger, get rid of the opponent, regardless of who it is. Jin-woo gave that order to the guards and carefully closed shut the door to her room. I can relax a little now. Indeed, he felt less worried. He made sure to lock the front door properly and exited from the apartment, and found Yu Jin-ho waiting for him there. Just as promised. Hyung-nim. Yu Jin-ho greeted Jin-woo with a bright face. Was it okay sleeping in that place? Yes, it was fine, Hyung-nim. I had no idea, but motels nowadays seem to feature pretty good amenities. Since his little sister was staying at home, Jin-woo had Yu Jin-ho stay in a local motel nearby. By the way, Hyung-nim, what about this decent tow? I'm off. Yu Jin-ho hurriedly turned his head to the passenger side. However, the door was already wide open, and Hyung-nim was nowhere to be seen. Didn't something similar to this happen before? Yu Jin-ho scratched the side of his head. Hyung-nim can be so elusive sometimes, you know. Jin-woo opened the message window. The sovereign of the demons, Baron, can be found residing on the top floor of the demon's castle. Defeat Baron and collect his soul. If you succeed in sealing the soul of the demon king, you will be rewarded handsomely. Quest generation conditions. Completion of normal quest, collect the souls of demons. Re-entering the demon's castle. Quest completion condition. Slay the Demon King. Rewards: 1. Highest grade rune stone. 2. Bonus stat points plus 30. 3. Unknown reward. Jin-woo confirmed the details of the first reward next. By breaking this highest grade rune stone, you can learn a class-specific skill. I can learn a class-specific skill. Jin-woo's brows shot up. So far, he had earned 3 class-specific skills. The Shadow Extraction, the Shadow Storage, and finally, Sovereign's Territory. Every single one of them was an indispensable skill. And, just from the mere idea of adding one more skill to his roster, his heart palpitated even harder. What kind of skill is this? He wanted to confirm the information on the skill, but the only thing that popped up was its name, and no in-depth explanation was offered. Tusk. Jinwoo could only smack his lips wryly. Well, I'll find out eventually after completing the quest. A class-specific skill, and 30 bonus stat points, too. Even when excluding the unknown reward, it was already a remarkable amount of loot on offer. He was really tempted to simply rush up to the top floor in one go, but before I start anything, though, Jinwoo summoned his status window for the first time in a while. Strength 186, Endurance 145, Agility 175, Intelligence 189, Perception 126, Reduction in physical damage 46%. Passive skills: LV, Max, Tenacity LV, 1, High Grade Dagger Technique LV, 2, Active skills, Dash LV, Max, Vital Points Targeting LV, Max, Intimidation LV, 1, Dagger Throw LV, 2, Stealth LV, 2, Ruler's Reach LV, 2. He immediately made his way over to the floor transfer magic circle. Jinwoo spoke without hesitation. 76. The light gleamed brightly. In the moment it took to blink an eye, his surroundings had changed completely. He was now faced with a vigorously burning city. When inside the floor transfer magic circle, he wasn't supposed to be affected by the environments outside, but it still felt like his skin was burning up already. Jinwoo put the luggage down and pulled 2 artifacts out. The first one was a black robe named the Wind Robe by its maker, and the other one was a nameless ring with water-type magic imbued within. Jinwoo put on both the robe and the ring. After putting on the robe and pulling on the hood, Jinwoo finally felt like he was a true mage-type hunter now. I can feel my body cooling down. Just by wearing them, it felt like he was standing inside a refreshingly cool cavern or some such. I wonder, will this work against the flames of the demon's castle? Jinwoo slowly stepped outside of the magic circle, and thankfully, these artifacts proved their expensive worth. The debilitating heat couldn't affect him at all now, quite unlike the last time he was here. Nice. With that, his preparations were complete. However, it seemed that he wasn't the only one who had finished his preparations, because demons had picked up on his scent and had formed a large group to rush towards his position. He took out the bead of avarice from his inventory and placed it on top of Fang's palm. He used this from now on. Even though Jinwoo was supposed to be a mage type as well, the amplification effect of the bead of avarice didn't work on him. But he thought it'd prove to be quite helpful to a sorcerer like Fang's. Soon, demons rushed forward like a horde of insects in front of his nose. From somewhere high up above his head, a stupendously thick, frightening pillar of flames fell in a diagonal line and swept every single enemy away. What the FCK? The moment that scary pillar of flames swept by, everything had melted down, whether that be demons or the ground itself. Demons were incinerated in an instant, and familiar mechanical beeps rang one after the other in his ears. No way. Jinwoo tried to calm his trembling heart and took a look behind him. And he spotted Fang standing there, now twice the size of what his living counterpart grew to back in the dungeon, busy breathing out gray smoke from his mouth. Gulp. Jinwoo swallowed down dry saliva. Is this the true might of the bead of avarice? Since these monsters lived inside the demon's castle, they all must have had some amount of innate resistance towards flame-based attacks, but they were all burned away into oblivion. Just like that. Once he figured out what was going on, a chuckle broke out of his lips all by itself. Wait, maybe I'll get to clear this place a lot quicker than I thought. Jinwoo stared at the still burning remains of the demons as well as at the scorched black earth and screamed out in joy inwardly. Jinwoo divided his soldiers into 6 groups of 20, and then had them scatter around to hunt down monsters. He gave them 2 orders. 1. Kill every enemy you can find. 2. If the entry permit for the next floor is found, let me know straight away. It may not be possible to hold a conversation with his soldiers, but he could still communicate by using simple hand gestures. Since the soldiers couldn't pick up any loot, he had to go there personally if he were to acquire the entry permit. Sure, he'd have to give up on other loot beside the floor entry permit, but his current priority was to get to the top floor as soon as possible. Begin. With his command, all 6 groups went their separate ways, and, a short while later, experience points began raining down on him from literally everywhere. Looks like my shadows have begun hunting, huh? Jinwoo watched his experience points climb up and formed a pleased expression. However, he soon discovered that something was off. The amount of experience points I get has decreased. Could it be that the further away they are from me, the less experience points I earn? Jinwoo quietly observed the experience points messages popping up non-stop for a while. The amount earned had definitely decreased, albeit by a small margin. Still, he didn't think the reduced experience points weren't much of a loss. Sure, I'm getting less experience points, but now that much more efficient hunting was taking place over a greater expanse of the hunting area, the overall rate of the experience points earned was actually a lot faster than before. Jinwoo smiled in satisfaction as he confirmed his level jumping up by 2. His plan was on the money. He got to climb up to the 80th floor much faster than anticipated. As soon as arriving there, he summoned his soldiers once more. 119 shadow soldiers were summoned simultaneously. The soldiers and their levels had all climbed up pretty nicely after going on their own groups to hunt monsters and earn a ton of experience points for themselves. Oh, since when did Tank gain over 10 levels? Jinwoo's eyes opened wider. Maybe it felt happy after his owner's interested gaze fell on it. Tank, who had reached level 28 only yesterday, stood on his hind legs and let out a roar of wuong. Jinwoo wasn't the only one to enjoy the fruits of the efficient hunting, as it turned out. He grinned brightly. Alright, then, let's go. Just like before, he divided his army into 6 groups and had them set off. He then took off alone, as well. He was familiar with acting alone anyway, and he also didn't really need the soldiers' help, either. Jinwoo wasn't able to easily leave the 80th floor. Is there a group of really strong monsters somewhere on this floor? Yet another of Jinwoo's group returned back to him as shadows. He had no choice but to call them back because his mana couldn't sustain the rate of the soldiers' destruction and revival anymore. This would be the first time this happened. From the 76th to 80th floor, the method of hunting in dispersed groups during the past 4 floors had yielded the highest efficiency. Is it because fighting against superior demons is still too much to ask for? For sure, it were the superior demons and not high-ranked demons that appeared on the 80th floor most of the time. Heck, these superior demons even employed petty tricks like hiding under the ground, too. Even then, he didn't think these superior demons possessed such powers to be able to push back his soldiers to this degree. Not only that, there was something weird here as well, and that would be the groups of soldiers getting attacked all happened to lack a captain class among them. The groups with Fangs, Ygritte, Iron, and Tank were all perfectly fine, but the other 2 with no captain class got annihilated. Wait, could it be that the enemy is deliberately attacking the weakest groups first? If so, this could only mean that a monster possessing high enough intelligence to detect the opponent's weakness existed on this floor. Not only strong, but it even possessed intelligence. He obviously didn't know who it or they were, but without a doubt, they were proving to be a bit of a pain in the neck. There were 4 groups remaining. If he were to include himself, then 5. If the enemy has figured out the soldiers' movement pattern, then their next target is pretty obvious. The moment he thought that, Jinwoo disappeared from the spot. Jinwoo quickly arrived near where Tank's group was. Right in front of the pack, Tank was walking slowly but steadily forward. I'm pretty sure the next target will be this group, since the enemy seemed to possess enough intelligence to detect weaker opponents, as well as to identify the movements of the soldiers. Their next target had to be here. Let's observe for a little while. Jinwoo hid his presence to the best of his abilities and, while maintaining a fixed distance, he followed after his shadow beast soldiers. Here they come. When the enemies came close enough, their names became visible. He was thinking that these guys were way too different from the regular demons that walked around naked, whether they be low or high demons, and now he could even see that their names were different from the rest, as well. A demon aristocrat and 3 demon knights. The names he saw for the first time were written in black and very clear to see. He sensed strong hostility from all 4 of them. Tank finally discovered the demons. Once the demons got close enough, they dismounted from the horses. So, those rides were simply a means of transportation. Jinwoo continued to stare at the demons with a great deal of interest. Soon afterwards, the beast soldiers became excited by the entrance of enemies, roared out, and attacked first, signaling the beginning of the bitter, violent battle between these 2 groups. Tank's target, the demon aristocrat, easily jumped over the swung front paw with a light but quick movement. Jinwoo's brows shot up. That wasn't the end of the surprising spectacle, either. The demon aristocrat then spun in the air and thrust forward the spear held in its hand at Tank's chest. The fierce attack containing magic energy put a watermelon-sized hole in Tank's torso. From that smallish frame, an explosive aura could be felt rather clearly, and on top of that, it also possessed beautifully simple and clean movements, too. Jinwoo grew even more interested by then. Yup, not a regular monster, alright. Even before the beast soldiers could regenerate, they were cut and sliced apart and stabbed through by spears and swords. By then, Jinwoo was carrying a crumpled expression. He knew very well that, as long as his MP supply held up, his beast soldiers were practically immortals. Even if his MP did run out, they would simply return to him as shadows. However, he sure as hell didn't feel pleased watching his own boys getting pummeled like that. Was this how an older brother would feel when his younger sibling came home all beaten up black and blue? That is enough. Jinwoo couldn't stand it anymore and recalled his beast soldiers. They reverted back to their shadow forms and quickly moved below his feet, and absorbed back into his own shadow. Jinwoo undid his stealth in the midst of the demons. The demons were greatly taken by surprise, but as expected of pros, they immediately sensed Jinwoo's hostility and attacked him right away. Jinwoo punched down bare-fisted on the two knights beside him, and then grabbed the last one rushing at him and slammed the sucker down hard on the ground. The spiderweb-like cracks formed on the ground and a message popped up in his view. The exact same messages repeated 3 times. Each of his attacks killed one of his enemies. In less than 1 second, he cut short the lives of 3 monsters. These guys were side distractions, anyway. The real deal is that guy. Jinwoo shifted his gaze over to the demon aristocrat. After their eyes met, the aristocrat flinched rather grandly and pointed at him with its spear. I always wondered whether monsters could feel fear or not, but now he was pretty certain of it. Different from back when the demon aristocrat was pointing the spear at the beast soldier group. The tip of the weapon was trembling ever so slightly. Well, being able to sense the opponent's strength was also a part of one's skills, after all. I ain't going to go easy on you because of that, though. Jinwoo dashed forward. At the same time, the demon aristocrat thrust the spear forward. Jinwoo evaded the attack by tilting his head out of the way. Surprisingly, though, the spear changed directions multiple times and continued to harass him slightly. First, it was his face, next, his neck, and right after that, his heart. As if this wasn't something learned overnight, the demon's movement was smooth like flowing water. However, the spear was constantly blocked by Jinwoo's weapon, Baruka's dagger, and when the final attack aiming for his heart was parried off, Baruka's dagger sliced the spear's shaft in 2. The demon aristocrat froze up after seeing its broken spear. With that, this battle was over. Well, not even 3 or 4 rank hunters would be able to win against you, but Jinwoo rated the demon's abilities pretty highly. Too bad, today's matchup was all wrong for the monster. Jinwoo reached out and grabbed the enemy's helmet with his left hand. The shocked enemy immediately went into panic mode. It tried to pull its head back, but couldn't do anything from Jinwoo's powerful grip. He was thinking of yanking the helmet loose and cut the head off, so he strengthened his left hand some more. Jinwoo raised the Baruka's dagger high up. I surrender. I will surrender. Jinwoo frowned and stopped moving. A female. The face underneath the helmet definitely belonged to a female. Actually, Jinwoo didn't really care whether a monster was a male or female. But the thing was, the monster quickly lifted its hands high up in the air and declared its intentions to surrender. Please accept my apologies. We were in the wrong. Please spare my life. Not only had she changed her stance in the blink of an eye, but she was also now even begging for her life. A monster was doing what now? You attacked my soldiers, yet you want my forgiveness. We have committed a grave sin. However, as our clan is tasked with protecting this place, we couldn't simply let some basta. Yuck. I mean, we couldn't let any great beings go on a demon hunting spree without doing anything. I'd be eternally grateful if you forgive us. Oh well, from the demon's perspective, it was reasonable for them to think of this whole thing as a bit unfair. After all, it was he who just barged in here totally unannounced to hunt and massacre demons one-sidedly, right? So, Jinwoo changed his question slightly. Is it alright for you to beg for your life from someone who killed your own soldiers? The main role of the knights are to protect their lord. As long as I'm safe, they should be happy with the results. Jinwoo scratched his temple for a little. He was even more speechless now. I can't tell whether she's thick-skinned or just way too optimistic. The demon aristocrat slightly raised her head and tried to read Jinwoo's reactions. She couldn't help but feel that the situation was getting gradually worse for her. She kowtowed even harder than before and spoke in an urgent voice. If you spare my measly life, I shall give you anything you want. Jinwoo placed his hands on his waist. This demon aristocrat was a powerful monster. Yes, but what with her armament now stripped from her? Killing her was now easier than drinking cold soup for Jinwoo. So, what should I do with this one, then? There indeed was one such item. I want the entry permit. Excuse me. Swish. The demon aristocrat raised her head and stared at him with a surprised expression. Her face was shaped completely like a human's, excluding a pair of sharp incisors he saw when she opened her mouth just now. Of course. Jinwoo disinterestedly asked her. Can you get it for me? I shall give it to you. Give me what, exactly? The entry permit. You can give me the entry permit. Really? The demon aristocrat hurriedly nodded her head. It's in safekeeping by our clan. If you allow me to safely return, I shall hand over the permit. Demons were guarding the entry permit. Jinwoo slowly scratched his chin. For sure, it had been a long time since he arrived on the 80th floor. And not to forget, lots of demons were hunted down so far, too. Yet, there hadn't been a peep about the news of the entry permit. I thought the drop rate had worsened because I'm in the upper floors, or that a mid-boss was carrying it around. But now, if she was telling the truth about monsters hiding the permit, then, well, the current situation made a bit more sense. Seeing that Jinwoo was silently pondering his options, the demon aristocrat felt even more desperate than ever before and quickly added some more encouragement. I also know where you can locate the entry permits on the upper floors as well. If you guarantee my and my clan's safety, then I shall safely escort you to where they are. The light shining in Jinwoo's eyes changed a little bit. Now that offer was a bit more enticing. To Jinwoo's ears, who wanted to get to the top floor as soon as possible, her suggestion of guiding him to where each floor's entry permit sounded rather attractive. However, the question is, can I really trust her? He then looked straight into her eyes. Intimidation. A chill-inducing aura emanated from Jinwoo's eyes. The demon aristocrat was so terrified that her lips were trembling involuntarily. Can I trust you? I am not lying. He made a pledge to himself back when he received the power of the system. Give and take. Even if his opponent was a monster, his principles wouldn't change. If a monster kept her side of the bargain, so would he. Alright, Jinwoo withdrew the intimidation. You hand over the entry permit, and I'll quietly leave. It was a bit of a waste to give up on the potential experience points gained from this demon, as well as those monsters supposedly guarding the entry permit. But then again, he found it even more of a waste to spend time searching for the permit himself. He had been delayed for much longer than expected on this 80th floor already. Besides, if this female demon was thinking of tricking him, well, he wouldn't be too unhappy about that either, because if she did, then he'd get to go all out in the monster's main camp. Thank you very much. The complexion of the demon aristocrat brightened so much that he couldn't help but notice it. Was she just honest with her emotions, or was she just a simpleton? Jinwoo inwardly clicked his tongue, but still didn't forget to ask her something he was curious about for a while. Before all that, though, just what are you? I am Essel, the firstborn daughter of House Raideru, and my clan is... No, not that. Jinwoo cut Essel off. He didn't really care about the finer details of a monster family's history. What he wanted to know was the reason why monsters and instant dungeons existed. How should he go about asking this question so he'd get himself a satisfying enough answer? No, he would still be okay if there was no concrete answer. He'd be happy enough to get a single clue, a lead of some kind. Hey, do you also hear a voice telling you to kill humans? Pardon me. Essel looked at him with a pair of confused eyes. Essel hesitated and pondered for a moment before opening her mouth. No, but we do hear a different voice all the time. Okay, what does it say? It tells us to protect the space we're residing in. Essel spoke cautiously while being extra mindful of Jinwoo's reactions. The purpose of the instant dungeon's monsters is different from monsters of the regular dungeons. The sole purpose of the monsters from the regular dungeons was to kill humans, while the monsters of the instant dungeons were to guard where they were. The nature of the two camps' aim was quite different from each other. Wait a minute. Now that he thought about it, wasn't Jinwoo a monster-like existence to these monsters of the instant dungeons? How long have you been hearing that voice? It's right after we opened our eyes in this place. After opening their eyes in this place, is it? Didn't that imply that she and others were living in another location before this? Whether that was a genuine or a fake memory, that's what was left imprinted in her brain. Jinwoo continued on with his questioning. Okay, then, where have you been before waking up in this place? We were in the demon world. We just woke up one day and found ourselves stuck here. And what were you doing back in the demon world before that? We were getting ready for war. War, you say? Yes. Did she recall the memories of back then? Essel's expression no longer had any traces of fear when she was begging for her life, now only filled with grave determination. We were in the situation of preparing for war against a horrifyingly powerful foe that necessitated every demon scattered around in the demon world to unite. And that's where Essel's words were cut off. No, accurately speaking, Essel was still talking. Her lips were clearly moving up and down even now. However, Jinwoo couldn't hear her voice at all. Instead, he was blessed with the monotone mechanical voice spat out by the system. Right until Essel's explanations came to an end, that exact same message played over and over again. Jinwoo's eyes gleamed suspiciously. Had you left it alone, I wouldn't have suspected anything. actually. Indeed, he might have thought Essel's explanations as a backstory for the monsters of this place cooked up by the system or some such. Leveling up, instant dungeons, quests, quest rewards, penalties, and even the process of getting his class. He was faced with one situation after another that resembled video games, so if monsters had a game-like backstory as well, it did not come across as strange at all. However, the moment the system forcibly intervened, Jin-Woo became sure of one thing. Talking to her might give me a clue to solving everything. In other words, the system made a clear and definite mistake here, just now. What does the system want to hide? This unknown foe the demons were supposed to fight? Or the reason for the war? Maybe the end result? In order to figure this out, he narrowed down the scope of his next question. What was the identity of those horrifyingly powerful foes? However, at that moment, like a toy with a dead battery, Essel froze up on the spot. But that lasted only for a little while. She suddenly lost consciousness and powerlessly collapsed to the floor. Jin-Woo quickly snatched her and carefully laid her down on the ground. Seeing that her breathing was steady, it didn't look like she was in any danger. The system reacted way too sensitively towards the identity of this unknown foe or foes. Could those beings be related? What if those beings possessed some kind of incredible transcendental powers and for some reason exerted their influence on Earth and more specifically, him? Essel quickly raised her upper body, sensing another presence nearby. She looked to her side and found the totally wordless Jin-Woo sitting there. Her shoulders flinched a little just then. I wasn't dreaming. Slowly getting to terms with her new reality, Essel took a look around her, and there were huge piles of dead superior demons found nearly everywhere. Her brows shot up immediately. Demons with little intelligence didn't treat other demons with intelligence as their kin. So, an unconscious demon like her would have been seen as a tasty meal. However, the only reason why she was unscathed like this was, were you protecting me all this time? Rather than answering her, Jin-Woo raised his body up and then extended his hand out to Essel. Essel looked as if she was profoundly moved and, after holding onto his hand, cautiously stood up from the spot. Thank you. How long will we take to get to where the entry permit is? It's not too far from here. I'll take you there. Just as Essel said, they didn't have to travel far before arriving at a location where the entry permit was likely to be present. And it just so happened to be a large castle. A demon's castle inside the demon's castle, is it? The soldiers guarding the castle gates became tense instantly after seeing Jin-Woo. Lady Essel, we were waiting for your return. Where is my father? The Lord is waiting in the audience chamber. Understood. One of the knights glanced at Jin-Woo and asked, Lady Essel, this gentleman is. He's an important guest, so do not forget to mind your manners. After a long walk down a wide corridor, he found himself entering a very large chamber that looked like a boss room in a dungeon. So, this is the audience chamber. Jin-Woo scanned his surroundings. Other than tall stone pillars reaching up to the ceiling situated at a regular interval to either sides of the chamber, it was pretty much wide open and empty. It was as if this whole place had been prepared for potential battles that could break out. Essel and Jin-Woo stopped before the boss. The boss was the first to break the ice. Essel, father, this person is. Even before listening to Essel's explanation, the boss met the gaze of Jin-Woo and its brows shot up high. The irises of the boss were quaking visibly now. Why you? Just who did you bring before me? Father, this man is a guest. Essel desperately tried to explain, but the boss's agitation didn't want to lessen at all. A guest? Just what kind of a guest invades the home of the inviter with an army? Pardon me. Essel quickly shifted her gaze over to Jin-Woo. Just where was this army her father was speaking of here? Essel, do you not see it with your own eyes? Can you not see the countless soldiers hidden in that man's darkness? Jin-Woo's glare sharpened up a notch. I guess he's got pretty good senses. It seemed that the boss was able to see the soldiers hidden inside Jin-Woo's shadow. How dare you bring soldiers into my house? As soon as the boss roared out, many knights rushed inside the audience chamber. Father, Essel cried out to her father in a loud voice of her own, staring silently at the developing situation until then. Jin-Woo finally opened his mouth. We made a promise. Failing to sense any form of tension whatsoever from Jin-Woo, the boss's brows quivered greatly. What kind of a promise did you make? The entry permit. Jin-Woo took a step forward. As long as you hand over the floor entry permit, I'll quietly leave this floor. The boss swallowed his saliva nervously. The man who hunted down demons at a frightening pace while climbing up the floors must be him. The boss recalled how despondent he felt when the news of the much-trusted Vulcan and Metis falling reached his ears. Even though the Raideru clan was nominally aristocrats, they were actually ranked 20th, the very last spot on the list of the demon's hierarchy, meaning they were the weakest among the aristocratic clans. If they were to face off against an enemy that took care of Vulcan and Metis quite easily, the boss knew that he'd have to sacrifice quite a lot of their own. However, such a terrifying enemy was saying that he'd leave on his own volition. Should I believe him? The boss asked, feeling not entirely convinced. Is that the only thing you want from us? As if he was waiting for that, Jinwoo spoke up. And also, but, of course, the boss's forehead creased up in a frown as the situation unfolded as he expected. The demands of the strong were always unfair and constant. Even before hearing the ridiculousness of the demands that would insult the clan's honor and ridicule his proud soldiers, the boss could feel his chest tighten in frustration already. Sure enough, the man placed his hand on the shoulder of the boss's daughter and spoke. I wish to borrow this kid from you, too. What did you say? The boss and the knights all cried out in astonishment simultaneously. Jinwoo scanned his vicinity, feeling genuinely puzzled now. Essel told him that she knew where the entry permits were at in the higher floors. He only asked to borrow her for a little bit so she could guide him to where the permits were, but this was. Did I say something wrong? Jinwoo could only tilt his head this way, and that as he alternated his gaze between the heavily trembling boss, the knights who couldn't hide their astonishment, as well as Essel and her deeply blushing face. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.